Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zach Warren, and today I will be discussing the career of Aaron Bay-Schuck, who I found actually really interesting to look into. So some background info on Mr. Aaron Bay-Schuck. He attended Columbia University where he studied political science. Aaron actually claims that he wanted to work around talent in the entertainment field, but it was actually in entertainment law. He actually didn't intend on becoming an A&R until he took an internship with Interscope, and it was for video promotion, which was referred to him by his friend's girlfriend. So this is where the interest in working with the talent in an A&R executive began. Just some additional background for Mr. Bay-Schuck. He interned at Interscope for a short period of time, and then he came back later to do one more round of interning before he landed a full-time gig with the label. And after learning that full-time gig with the label, he worked his way up and gained his way into an executive position as president of A&R. And then by 2012, he was the president of A&R for Atlantic Records up until about 2017, where in 2017 he left and became co-chairman of the he became the co-chairman and CEO of Warner Music Group's Warner Brothers Records. So one of Bay-Schuck's biggest claims to fame was actually signing Bruno Mars to Atlantic Records. It took him actually several years before the label actually saw the same vision that Bay-Schuck did in Bruno Mars. The label released his Unorthodox Jukebox album that sold millions of copies worldwide, and then by 2013 it won a Grammy for the Best Pop Vocal Album, and it had sold over 3.2 million, and then rose to 6 million in 2015. So it was also Bruno Mars's his first #1 album on the Billboard Top 200. And some other noteworthy achievements, Bay-Schuck also had his hand in co-writing Flo Rida's Right Round, and which it sold over 5 million copies in the U.S. And then he played a role in the success of CeeLo Green's F.U., and he also helped out with Travie McCoy's Billionaire. Alright, so now I want to go into the path to success for Aaron Bay-Schuck. So Bay-Schuck stated in an interview actually with Steve Rennie on Renman Live about the importance of networking. And I really like the Steve Rennie shows on YouTube. You can find that on there. It's Renman Live, and it's a podcast that discusses a lot of things within the music industry. They talk to a lot of artists. They talk to up-and-coming people who are not signed to a label, and they share a lot of news about music. It's really interesting if you haven't watched it. So he mentioned that you can't just pick up the phone and reach out to these artists. You need to travel to these artists no matter where they are in the world and try to network them. So if you want to work with these guys, you have to travel out to wherever they are. If they're in London, you're going to need to get up on a plane and you're going to need to fly out to London so you can talk to this artist and actually help them see if you can develop them and see if they would fit best with the label. Because it's all about the best interest of the label at the end of the day, which he shows a lot. And he also shows that he was indispensable through his work ethic. That was, it goes back to him understanding that he has to actually go out and network all the time. It's nonstop for someone who is an executive for a music label like Warner Brothers, and even Atlantic when he was signing Bruno Mars. So he took risk in the beginning, and that was a big part of the success, I think, especially with the Bruno Mars story about how the label didn't want to sign him at first, and it took them for at least I think it was about 5 years, and it took until 2012 in order for him to actually sign Bruno Mars to Atlantic Records for that huge Unorthodox Jukebox album. So he took a lot of risk, and he was very persistent, and he stuck to his roots, and I think that was really what paved the way to his success in the music industry. So thank you for watching. That is all the time I have, and this was my presentation on Aaron Bay-Schuck.